Coming up, the Dragons shudder against the electric blue and gold. The Sharks run over the top over the Steelless Knights. And an all-Sydney showdown for the NRLW Grand Final. Yes, hello, and welcome to the Sideline Chat podcast, the one-stop shop for rugby league. Along with Mark Hendry, I'm Connor Marcellis, and today, again, rolling with the changes, it's your NRL Week 5 debrief. I'm going to jump straight into the Round 5 fixtures of the Telstra Premiership. The Newcastle Knights hosting the Manly Sea Eagles.
And there has been some team changes for Manly, with Tonto Vorovic out for 4 to 6 weeks. Tolu
Kula.
With Christian Tuipulotu, coming in at centre, and Brad Parker being named amongst the reserves with Ethan Bullimore, the 18th man.
Well, at this stage, Newcastle have named an unchanged lineup, but there are question marks over Tyson Frizzell after pulling up short in really what was an embarrassing performance for Newcastle, going down 18-0 to the Sharks.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty for the Knights at all. They were nowhere. Their scoreline doesn't really show how dominant the Sharks were.
Most of the attack of their right edge defensively, CSC for Talakai was causing absolute trouble for them down that right-hand side. One try, very unlucky not to get another, 223 running meters, 17 tackle breaks, and 2 offloads.
Yeah, I reckon he should have had at least another try. That got disallowed. That should have been a try in my books. But he was usually in the forward pack, on centre.
Oh, he's versatile. And he's athletic too, which makes it even more scary for opposition and edge defences. If you got Talakai either in the backs or in the forwards right there. But Newcastle's defence, and even worse, Kalen Ponga, been in the news as of late. I don't know what to say. He's not worth $1.1 million. I know that for sure.
Well, not at the moment, he's not. Anyway, he could have built into that, but if he signs a contract that's $1.1 million at the moment, like if he signs it tomorrow, he's not worth $1.1 million as we speak.
And I mean, there was all this hubbub about Wayne Bennett, but they were the ones that actually approached Wayne. He just came down.
Exactly.
It was KP and his dad that made the call, and Andrew Johns, I don't know what he was thinking, but maybe he should have waited before all the facts were out first before saying it was unprofessional of Wayne. Manly, on the other hand, very good performance against the Raiders. Daly Cherry Evans' kicking game really left the Green Machine reeling.
Yeah, it certainly was. Like, Cherry Evans, he did a 20-40, a 40-20, and a field goal.
On top of 1 try assist and offload, and of course 38 run meters in really a clinical performance. But the short kicking game, Olakawatu just charging through on that run. And that really broke the camel's back for the Raiders defensively.
Yeah, it certainly did. Look, Canberra, I don't know what happened with them. The only bright part of that game was Jack Whiten with the show and go to score the one and only try for the Green Machine. But other than that, they were not existent.
Loss of Tommy Turbo does trouble me for this game, but I don't really see Newcastle breaking them down defensively. I think Turbo out, it makes the game a whole lot tighter, but I don't really see the Knights troubling the Sea Eagles after they've really found their rhythm in this game. I got to say Manly win this 7 points to 12.
Well, Newcastle back on home turf since round 2, and they did play really good against a shit Tigers side, to be quite honest. So it's kind of an easy victory for them then. But the rate that Cherry Evans has been in at the moment, I'm going to have to say Manly to win by 20 points.
Yeah, so you're calling for a big Manly 13-plus victory.
Yep.
Be interesting to see how they go without Turbo, but relatively soft draw. Only the Sharks would be their only concern in this next month. So I really don't see any trouble for Manly moving forward at this point. Now, first of the Friday night games, it's the New Zealand Warriors up against the North Queensland Cowboys. No Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow for North Queensland. So Scott Drinkwater gets a shock call-up at fullback of all positions. And of course, no Cohen Hess, but he has been included on the reserve As at the moment, Ruben Cotter back to the interchange with Jermaine Tanoa-Brown starting up front.
And for the home side, for the second week in a row, Adam Fanua-Blake is to the reserves list with Bunty Afoa starting at prop. Josh Curran is named at lock with Bailey Sirenen out on the edge, and Just Tabunga is out on with Murdoch Marcella with Aaron Penne and Jack Murchie, the new players on the bench.
A tale of two teams is what essentially this is. The Warriors, very good, 20 points to 6 win over the Broncos last start. Sean Johnson's kicking game really stood up for them there. His first game back injury, I didn't really think much of it until he actually stood up. 40 run meters, 1 try assist, 2 tackle breaks, and 2 goal line dropouts for us. It put Brisbane on the back foot and really set the Warriors up for the win.
Yeah, Warriors had a fantastic game against Brisbane, which I was expecting Brisbane to be a lot better and having a lot more tighter contests, but the Warriors just showed they were really good. And like you said, the influence of Sean Johnson back really did help them.
I mean, there were questions where he dipped, and of course he would dip, but he set the Warriors up nice and early against some really flimsy Brisbane defence. Corey Oates and Albert Kelly in particular really letting their side down defensively there.
Well, yes, but is that Albert Kelly's poor defence a knock-on effect on what happened off-field?
Yeah, try and punch on with Payne Haas. I think you're going to end up in hospital or for at least 3 weeks there. Tom Flagler, another disappointment. 4 separate charges, and he's lucky he's only got 2 weeks on the sideline for this.
He really needs to work on his discipline big time and fast, because the rate he's going, Brisbane will have to let him go.
Big question. Is he now a bigger liability than Tavita Pangai Jr. was?
That's a good question.
I'll leave it to you. Sound off in the comment section below. Is Tom Flagler a bigger liability than Pangai Jr. was during his stint? As for the Cowboys, really terrible performance.
I was expecting them to be a lot better based on their round 3 performance against Brisbane.
But the Roosters just played hard and fast through the middle, and the aerial assault that Walker and Keeley laid on, especially for the tall timber of the Roosters, or even the athletic ones. Joey Manu, absolute field day up in Townsville. 2 tries, 2 try assists, 87 run meters, and 5 tackle breaks. Nice touch. Kevin Nagama got his first try back in the NRL after, of course, 3 years with St. Helens. So at 33, hoping for one last campaign with Fiji, back at the World Cup perhaps. But the Cowboys' discipline was not at all there. Just 3 sin bins in 80 minutes and really couldn't handle what the Roosters were dishing up.
Yeah, no, the 3 sin bins was beyond the joke. You had Townsend, who else was there? Tom Gilbert, and I can't think of the third player. Just bear with me. But to have 3 in space of 80 minutes, that's rubbish. Griffin Neem. Griffin Neem was the third one. But that's wrong, and 2 of those were in the second half. That's just wrong. But the Roosters were just too dominant.
Losing Adam Fanua-Blake for the Warriors is concerning as well, but the Cowboys are licking their wounds, and I think if Johnson now with some match time under his belt, I think if he and Reece Walsh can get a fast start early against this big North Queensland pack and try and win the wrestle in the middle, I think that the Warriors can reel off back-to-back victories here. I'm saying the Warriors 1-6.
I'm going to say the Warriors are going to win this one as well. Purely because they did a huge performance against Brisbane and Sean Johnson's influence. I'm going to say the Warriors this one are going to win by 12 points.
And of course, on Friday night, it is the Brisbane Broncos hosting the Sydney Roosters. Trent Robinson back in the coach's box after the spicy cough said to sit down for a week at least. Connor Watson named to start again, but we've been told don't be surprised if this is a late change before kickoff.
Yeah. As for Brisbane, Pat Carrigan is out with a knee injury. With Albert Kelly is also out with a foot injury. And Tom Flegler's out suspended as well. So Billy Walters is back in the halves with Keenan Palacia at prop, Kobe Hetherington at lock. Kurt Capewell is back in the back row with TC Rabati dropping to the interchange. And Corey Pakes and Corey Jensen also are on the bench with Brenko Lee out as well.
We sort of already talked about what the Broncos did wrong. I mean, the only try they ended up scoring was off Adam Reynolds. That was the only attacking rate they really had that worked for them. As for the Roosters, they laid on 6 tries in 18 minutes.
Yeah.
No questions. The kicking game of Keeley and Walker saw the Roosters get home comfortably. Lapse in defence, but they were already up 4 to 5 tries to none, so can't really blame them for that one. I think most people are expecting this to be a blockbuster. I don't really see it that way. I think Brisbane, a lot of trouble at the moment. We don't know if Payne Haas is still going to be playing at the moment with the ongoing police investigation after the decided to go 15 rounds with Kelly. But this is not what the Broncos needed right now. The Roosters coming to town red hot after finding their groove in Townsville. This is going to be a bloodbath. Roosters win 13 plus.
Yeah, look, Brisbane, their off-field dramas is not helping their cause at the moment. And after coming off a disappointing loss to the Warriors, and the Roosters are in red-hot form, I'm going to say the Roosters are going to win by 13 plus and precisely, as always, 32 points.
It's going to be a very ugly afternoon for Brisbane, or ugly Friday night. Speaking of ugly afternoons, the Canberra Raiders back out at Wagga hosting the Melbourne Storm.
Melbourne team news? Nothing. Absolutely nothing has changed.
Same 17.
Well, there we go. How easy is that? Quickest team list go through ever.
And you know what? It's the same story with the Canberra Raiders also running out unchanged despite going down 25 points to 6 against the Sea Eagles. Look, Canberra are now starting to really run hot and cold, and I'm not liking this one bit.
Well, no, because they're going well, and then they weren't, and then they were, and yeah. They're turning into the Warriors.
20 minutes is all it took for them to really lose the game. At 10 points to 6, they're in the game after Jack Wyden got them into the game. Unlucky for Josh Papali'i not to score in the first half. But that final 20 minutes is what really let them down there. The short grubber kicks for Olakawatu, the aerobatics in the air from Ruben Garrick and Jason Saab to score tries, and for Morgan Harper to end up with a tries as in the first half. It just didn't work out. And then just poor defence on Tom Trbojevic at the back end.
Yeah, it wasn't good for Canberra at all.
But as for Melbourne, much more of a perfect game for them, running out 44-0 winners over the Canterbury Bulldogs. Look, I'm going to say Melbourne just took their opportunities hard, and their defence was absolutely outstanding.
They were going that way. They didn't have time to interchange Jerome Hughes off the field. They could have put a bloody reserve team out there and still piled on more points.
I'd probably draw the line at reserve grade team. I think the Dogs would have had a better chance against that. But hey, look, Melbourne were able to defuse it successfully and then go hard on the counter-attack. 2 of the early tries to Pappenhausen, the first try he scored, and the Kenny Bromwich try, that could have easily been double movement if they dove too early. So you take those 2 out of the game, it's still not an appealing result. As for the long-range bursts, well, that's just on the Bulldogs, isn't
it?
That's their attack.
Poor defence there from the Dogs. You can't if you let Melbourne into space, they're going to make you pay for it. And that's exactly
and they made him pay. Hughes was struggling when he set Pappy up for his 51-minute hat-trick. And then, more lucky, Xavier Coates was able to streak into the backfield, no trouble whatsoever. And that fend on the Fox. Yeah. How bloody strong is he?
I reckon. That was ridiculous. But also, Felix Kafusu, he wasn't as much into open space, but he was into a bit of space, though.
Because of Coates' strong run. That's all it was.
Yeah.
Coates gets into the backfield, chances are you're not going to essentially run him down.
No.
I think we both know which way this one's going, as much as the Raiders don't want to hear this one bit. Melbourne don't concede easy. I mean, the Tigers gave them a scare round 1, but since then they have just been in total control, especially when they've got a donut scoreline in the against column to work with. I think the Melbourne Storm win big again. I think it's going to be another 13+ victory. I'm going to say Xavier Coates, at least a hat-trick.
Ooh, there you go. Well, I'm going to say Melbourne to win by 28 points. And I'm going to say Pappy to back it up with another hat-trick with Pappenhausen to back up his
He's just an absolute points machine, isn't he?
Yeah. 4 tries in the game last week. And I'm going to say he's going to get a hat-trick again this week.
Well, moving on, we've got South Sydney up against the St. George Illawarra Dragons. The Dragons making a couple of positional changes here and there. Of course, Jack Bird starting at 5'8", after starting from the second row. Tarek Sims promoted into the second row. DeBellin at lock forward. Amone back to the bench, and as it was, really no changes for Anthony Griffin, of course, barring the return of Jaden Sewer.
Yes, and as for the Rabbitohs, there are some mass changes. Jackson Paulo to the reserves after suffering a concussion. Mansour is in to make his return in place of Paulo. Mark Nichols is out with a syndesmosis injury. He's replaced by Tom Burgess, Davey Moali, and Blake Tuff are on the bench, with Habili dropping back to the reserves.
Both sides were disappointing over the weekend. I will say
one more than the other.
First of all, the grand final rematch with South Sydney did not go the way they hoped. I think their second half defence crumbled because they were able to contain Cody Walker hard. Latrell Mitchell didn't really make an impact on the game. He tried early, but he went missing at the back end. And nice play from Lachlan Ilias, of course. Also with that beautiful lead-up work for Campbell Graham, standing up Isaac Tago, I believe it was, to allow Graham to slide on through.
But it's unlucky that Ilias got that try disallowed, though.
And then compounded that by giving away an 8-point try to Taylor May. No, that's the first 8-point try of the year. So we've already had the first send-off of the year back in round 3. And then a week later, we get the first 8-point try. Want to know what the common denominator was?
What's that?
Both involved a Panthers player.
Oh, yeah.
You see? You pay attention to these things. And that's another question. How many times have you seen that happen? A send-off and an 8-point try in back-to-back weeks involving the same team.
Next to none. There's like 1 in a million chances of happening.
I really liked how Jerome Luai and Viliami Kikau were playing. Luai in particular really ran the attack whilst Cleary was trying to get back on his feet. 61 run meters, 2 try assists, 2 tackle breaks, and an offload to his credit. As for St. George Illawarra, that was the perfect game for the Parramatta Eels.
Next game.
Yeah, no, we're going to stay here just a little bit. Because that was try after try after try after try. 5 straight tries for the Parramatta Eels in the second half alone.
Yes, it was. It was a horrible second half for the Dragons. During the game, I sent Connor a message with laughing emoji things to him about the Bulldogs loss, and then he sent it back to me. But then my argument was, at least we got points on the board, unlike the Bulldogs.
Yeah, but of course, at the end of the day, you got to look up because Dog supporter first, Eel supporter second. So that means I get to look down at you from such a great height. You would think it was raining cats and dogs.
I was going to say, you would have been very happy.
Or raining George Burgess is getting a bit, you know what I mean.
Touchy.
Oh, but Bryce Cartwright's
that was ridiculous. Come on. When's the last time you saw that happen like that?
I've no idea. I honestly have no idea, but that is just, when you're on, you're on. And Dylan Brown, but Mitchell Moses in particular, running the show for the Eels. 2 tries, 2 try assists, 105 running meters, a tackle break, 100%, 8 from 8 goals converted.
So he had a cracker of a game, Mitchell Moses. He needs to keep this up if he wants to ever make. He won't be making it this year, but if ever wants to be like in the squad for the Blues, he needs to keep this performance up. Whether or not he'll play, which I don't think he will.
It's a question of whether Cleary or not is injured. That's probably the only obstacle he has to
even if
contend
he's
with.
just in the squad and not playing, it's still a learning thing for him.
Look, both sides were disappointing. Of course, the Rabbitohs didn't look like they were really going to threaten the Panthers whatsoever. But at the same time, are St. George Illawarra in a death spiral?
Well, one, I don't know why Anthony Griffin has dropped Tyrell Sloan and Junior Amone. I know Amone is on the bench, but I don't know why he's not in the starting side. And I don't know why Sloan's been dropped altogether. I just don't know what to go is there.
The addition of Taft now makes things interesting because now you could see either one of the centres getting hooked. Taft goes to fullback, Mitchell into the centres, and that could change the Rabbitohs' attacking dynamic straight up.
Unless you take Ilias off and then put Taft in the halves.
That's another thing as well. So there's a couple of options Jason Demetriou goes with now. Now, the middle defence of St. George Illawarra needs to be key here against Damien Cook and Cam Murray. But I think if the Rabbitohs can get Mitchell and Walker early ball, they're going to really do a number on the Dragons. And that's why I'm going to side with the Rabbitohs. 7 points to 12. I think if you can get Latrell enough good ball to maybe bust a tackle or even set up Johnston or Mansour, the Dragons are going to be in for a long night.
Yeah, I have to agree there. Latrell is on, Walker's on, and Cook and Murray are all playing really good footy. It's going to be a long, tough night for the Dragons, and I'm going to say the Rabbitohs are going to win by 24 points.
Yep, now moving on to the final game of Saturday night. It is the Gold Coast Titans hosting the Parramatta Eels. Only one change for Parramatta. Sean Lane back in the second row with Bryce Cartwright back as the 18th man.
Bit of surprise there considering his awesome performance he did against the Dragons.
Well, he only played less than 20 minutes. I wouldn't say it was amazing, but that try assist...
that
try assist is the highlight of the week right there.
Yeah. And for Gold Coast, both Fernmore, Philip Sami and Isaac Leo are all back from the spicy cough. Sami switches to the centres in place of Brian Kelly. Campbell is not named as of yet. Jermaine Asako is again at fullback, and Herman Sa also is back on the spicy cough and amongst the reserves.
Gold Coast, I would say, they got the win, but it was absolutely disappointing the way they played against the Tigers.
Yeah.
8
I mean, the
points to
Tigers
6.
should have easily put at least 20 on them, if not more.
I definitely agree. Completions were a massive failure for both the Tigers and the Titans on this front.
Yeah, like I said, Gold Coast should have won by 20 or more. Tigers almost had the first victory of the season, but...
Okay, I'm going to ask you this. 12 minutes ago, Luke Brooks kicks a penalty goal to take the game to 6 points to 2. Was that a mistake?
I mean, they were holding on, though, until the last minute of the match, so... Probably not, in a way, but yes in another.
Yeah,
but the attacking force for the Tigers weren't as good as what it could have been. So that's probably, I don't think the Tigers would have scored if they didn't take the penalty goal. So it was actually not a bad play. That's why it was a good move by the Tigers to take the penalty goal to make it 6 points to 2.
This game was probably the most boring I've seen probably all year.
I have to agree with you.
I mean, I like you gotta love tight defensive games, but if it's against the best two sides, where tries are plentiful, then I can understand. But here, we didn't see that.
No.
We didn't see that at all. I mean, you could be forgiven for thinking this was the Storm up against the Roosters, but at least we know they're the best attacking sides in the league.
Yeah.
Here, it wasn't. And I gotta feel sorry for Jock Madden with that fumble.
Yeah, that was so unfortunate. That's what I was referring to. The Tigers are oh so close to getting their first victory until that moment in the match where AJ Brimson put down
Very
the
lucky.
pressure on
I
the
would
ball.
say very lucky to have scored that try because he overchased on that.
He did. But yeah, unfortunate for Tigers, but good for Gold Coast.
And of course, Tino Fasua Malawi was a standout for them again. 133 running meters, 34 tackles, and 12 hit-ups. They're still not getting the best out of David Fafita.
No, which is
Despite having 125 run meters to his name, he's not getting that ball in good enough position.
no. And you think that based on last year's where they made the run into the finals, albeit getting knocked out week one, that giving him the ball would be the best in. He scored how many tries in the first few weeks last year?
Well, he was practically scoring hat-tricks every other week.
Yeah, I think he got 17 tries all up last season.
17, most by any Gold Coast player in a season, and probably the first 4 to do it since foundation days.
Yeah, so they need to get him the ball and quick. Well, not and quick. Well, yeah, and quick, I should say.
If Parramatta can keep up what they did against the Dragons, because that's the big question is, can they back it up what they did into St. George? I reckon Brad Arthur's going to bring them back down to earth here just to say, okay, you played well, now let's get ready, do it again. Just run hard through the middle, and then lead the attacking play for the back. Okay. And we just want to punish the Titans hard. And if Clint Gutherson scores, I hope he's over the top of Philip Sami when he does it.
Yeah, what was it? Round one?
Round one.
Round one. Sami did it to Gutho at Parramatta. Return serve is ruined, and I'd say we'll have...
I see no reason why not the Eels can't go back to 0-3 straight here. Yeah, I'm going to go with them 13 plus. I think the way they played, if Moses and Brown, especially Dylan Brown, can keep up this momentum he's got at the moment, I think the Titans are going to be in for a real tough night.
The one player I'll be keeping an eye on for the Titans is Bo Fermor, because he's had a pretty reasonable start to the season. So I'll be watching him very, very closely to see how much of an impact he has on the game. But in saying that, the rate that Eels played against the Dragons, you can't go past them. Eels by 18 points.
Yeah, I think Parramatta, that forward pack, especially with the spine now starting to click, this could turn into anything for them. Now, speaking of anything, Sunday afternoon football, the Cronulla Sharks up against the West Tigers, and the Tigers have had to make... Well, actually, despite 4 straight losses, Michael Maguire has chosen to name the same 17.
Surprisingly there. And
The Sharks have done practically the same.
Exactly the same. Talakai still in the back line with Ikavala and Connor Tracy still out.
At this rate, I don't know where the Tigers go from here. And I think realistically, they're staring down the barrel of something very, very ugly.
0-5.
Worse than 0-5. They could realistically be 0-10, the way they're playing at the moment.
True, depending on how tough the draw is for the next 5 weeks.
Sharks, Eels, Easter Monday. They've got to play Manly. They've got to play St. George Illawarra.
They actually might have a chance against the Dragons, considering the performance against the Dragons and against Parramatta. But
nah. Look, the Sharks are playing outstanding football at the moment. And this interesting statistic was mentioned in the commentary for the Friday night game, where 3 of the back 5 ran for more than 200 metres.
Wow. When's the last time you heard that?
2016.
With the
You look at the
Sharks?
back 5 of the Sharks back then. Barber, Fecky, Bird, Latelli, Holmes. Who have they got now? They got Kennedy. They got 2 outstanding wingers in Katoa and Mulatalo. Jesse Ramian is an absolute beast. But the real monster in that back 5 is Siasi Talakai.
Yeah.
Second chance after being a Garbo for a year or 2. And he's repaying the faith.
It certainly is. And it's good that he's getting a second chance and making it worthwhile.
Well, more than worthwhile. He's probably one of the most important players in the Sharks' backline at the moment.
Yeah.
Never mind Kennedy.
Yeah, exactly. So there is full strength while Tracy and Ichabala are out. Although it would be hard for both of them to get back in the rate that Talakai's been playing.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And that's important. The Tigers need to stop Talakai, first and foremost. If he's allowed 17 tackle breaks again, it's going to be much more uglier than 18-0.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they got to really be able to muscle up against him, because if he runs riot, the Sharks are winning big. And I think that's exactly how it's going to go. The Sharks win 13 plus. I'm going to think Talakai gets another 2 tries out of this. And I'm going to see another spectacular try from either Katoa or Mulatalo in the corner.
Yeah, fair enough.
With the John Cena post-try celebration, of course.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to have to agree with you there. Sharks are going to win, and they're going to win absolutely big time. And when I say big time, I'm going to say by 42 points.
Sharkies.
The Sharks are going oh so well.
They smell Madge's blood in the water. They really can't do anything to stop it at this point. It's just like that slow motion car crash that you just can't turn away from at the moment. And I know the Bulldogs have their own problems, and we're going to talk on that briefly coming up. But the Tigers are just... You're almost ready to blow them up at this point.
Wooden spoons heading more and more likely their way.
I mean, you look at the bottom 4 at the moment. You've got probably North Queensland, Canterbury, St George Illawarra, West Tigers, all in that order. But at least Canterbury, you could say, looked convincing in parts. Really, he turned a corner, starting to build something. The Dragons disappointing to start, and the Cowboys the real surprise packets.
Yeah, they are. So, although I think the Cowboys are higher up in the ladder.
Well, that could be the case. Now, speaking of the Dogs, we got to look at them up against the Penrith Panthers. Hang me now.
Penrith, pretty much same side, exactly the same side. Although Fisher Harris and Martin are resuming in the starting spots with Lenu and Sorensen listed on the bench. Kick out. He's expected to play after suffering a head knock last week.
The biggest change for Canterbury going into this game, Carl Flanagan recalled with Brandon Wake going back to the bench. Bailey Biondi Odo now the 18th man.
Can I say, hallelujah, Kyle Flanagan's back. About time he gets another chance.
It's going to be interesting to see how he goes, because of course Gus and the rest of the Canterbury club will only try and say, no, this whole conspiracy theory about him swapping with Luke Brooks, which would have been an absolute disaster if they did.
It would have been a worse move by the Dogs to get Brooks than what it is to keep Flanagan.
Worst move since keeping Moses Mbai over Trent Hodkinson.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But that's just recent times. We've made a whole lot more worse mistakes. The Bulldogs' attack just broke down, and I don't want to really bag up Matt Burton for this, because he's looked probably the most likely to create something or good field position with that bloody good kicking game, but the argument is he sort of lost his instinct to run.
Well, he hasn't got he hasn't got the team around him to help support him.
Well, that's the problem. He actually does have the decent forward pack to work with.
Well, he does.
He's got a decent, half decent fullback in Matt Duffy. Braden Burns, the real surprise packet out of all the recruits, and he's got the Fox to his outside.
Yeah. Look, so
how can you tell me that's not a decent side?
Well, it's a decent side, but they just need to work with him a bit more. Then he'll be able to produce his best than what we saw at Penrith.
I'm going to make for a good analogy here. It's the reverse problem Burton has to what Jack Whiten has. Because Jack Whiten, he's got that strong running game, but he doesn't have that controlling instinct. Burton has got the good kicking game, but he doesn't have that same instinct just to run and try and create something from nothing.
That is true.
So it's a reverse Whiten situation you got going here.
That is true. And good spotting too, because I wouldn't have picked that up.
I'm expecting a massive defensive improvement from the Dogs. I think we need to really tighten up the defense again. We were doing nicely, and then we let Melbourne in, and it was very ugly.
Very ugly was an understatement, I reckon. Anyway,
But I still think the Panthers will be in dominant control. I think now that Nathan Cleary's got at least one game under his belt, I think we can see him step back up and really take the reins. And to justify, of course, Clive Churchill and Dally M halfback of the year. Not to mention the fact that he is the best halfback in the game going round.
at the moment, yes. In saying that, I'm going to say Panthers to win by 36. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Panthers win 13 plus. I think if they shut down Burton like they did to Walker, I can see Penrith really laying things on. And Isaac Tago, the real emerging talent that they got on their hands there.
Exactly, and same thing goes to Taylor May. He's been a good surprise packet.
No Toto, no Leota, no worries.
Pretty much.
That's practically the Panthers' motto at this point. And
Well, even when Cleary wasn't there, still no worries.
it'd be very interesting to see how well Viliami Kikau does from the perspective of a Dogs fan that's going to get Kikau next year.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
But I think it will be a very ugly evening for the Dogs again, but still doing a lot better than the West Tigers are.
Oh, yeah.
Now, finally, we've got the NRLW Grand Final played between St. George Illawarra Dragons and the Sydney Roosters. By surprise, Isaac upset at the Moreton Daily Stadium in Redcliffe. You called this before all the semi-finals over the weekend.
Yep, I sure did. I said, how awesome would it be to have an all-Sydney Grand Final in Queensland, replicating the men's side, although two different teams then, sure enough. But one thing is guaranteed. We're going to have a new team on that trophy.
For the first time in close to 5 years, a new side will have their name on the trophy that isn't the Brisbane Broncos.
Exactly.
As unchanged lineups for both sides from the semi-final win. Jamie Soward opting to go for a full-strength lineup. Cody House rotating back to the bench, but it could easily be the reverse come grand final day. Saratoga Tukey beating the charge and will be free to play in the grand final.
Yeah. The one thing I'm just reading here, that the Roosters have 10 players with grand final experience in their squad, 7 of those who played in the 2020 decider. As for the Dragons, they've had 5 players with grand final experience, 4 of those who played in the 2019 decider. So both have had a lot of grand final experience across the park. So this is going to be very.
The Roosters
very
were the
good
real
match.
surprise for me out of the first final series of the NRLW, because you didn't. If you only watched the first 20 games and thought, oh yeah, the Broncos were going to coast through to the grand final, you were wrong.
Well, everyone predicted, even the experts predicted, Broncos Dragons grand final.
I called Dragons Broncos long before the season even kicked off. I just felt like I didn't know what to expect out of Parramatta. Gold Coast might have been an interesting prospect, and they turned out that way.
Exactly.
But yeah, 4 unanswered tries across the back hour or more of the game. 50 minutes.
Yeah, it was. I don't know how the Roosters did it. This Broncos, probably the first time in their history to lose twice in a season, and now 3 times in their history.
And one of those being their first finals game that they play as well. So that's even more interesting. Keeley Joseph's try, what did you make of that? Because the video referee had a long look at that after the try was initially awarded.
Yeah, it's a bit touch and go, that one. Very, very, very 50-50.
Did you think she scored, or was it a knock-on?
I don't know.
Because personally, I was watching that game and I thought, knock-on. It had to looking at it live, grounded short, and then lost. I didn't think, but that's what the bunker ruled.
Yeah,
turned out to be a try, and that was the turning point right there, because that locks the scores up at 60 in all, and then the knockout blow where the Roosters score just that one try to get them over the top of the mighty Brisbane Broncos.
Yeah. And the footage shows how much it meant to the Roosters to make the grand final. They were slow to start the year, and they had a couple wins, and then off a little bit, but then they come back strong at the right time of year.
Isabel Kelly was probably the Roosters' best on the ground. I mean, playing together on the same side as Jess Surgis, or they were playing together over both sides, not really being restricted. One try that started the comeback. 156 running meters, 2 line breaks, 11 tackle breaks, and 3 offloads. In probably the greatest women's upset in this short history.
Well, I don't know if you call it the greatest, or would you call it a Titans beating Brisbane last week an upset, the greatest upset. I'm not quite sure.
No, I think this is the upset right here.
You reckon?
Yeah. As for St George Illawarra, coasted into the grand final, but not before a late Gold Coast fight back.
Yeah, I was getting a bit worried there. I was like, oh no, here we go. We're going to lose this to the newcomers. But no, we held our ground and Gold Coast just come up short. But I have to say, Gold Coast have done really, really well in their first season. So did Parramatta.
I agree.
So
Parramatta got unlucky at the back end, though.
They were very unlucky to not make the finals. The Roosters were lucky to make it into the finals.
And now they've knocked off the Broncos, so the power dynamic, who's got the real momentum going into this. But the Dragons, for me, barring the final 10 or so minutes where the Titans staged a miniature comeback, Keeley Davis's influence around the ruck really had St George Illawarra going early.
Yeah, she certainly did.
The grubber for Emma Tonagato, and then the grubber for herself. Yeah. Take those 2 tries out of it, the result is a completely opposite contrast.
It certainly is. Like, she had a magnificent game.
The Titans didn't really do themselves any favours. 12 penalties and a 68% completion rate.
Yeah, that's not good. But they shouldn't go home with their heads between their tails.
They had the final say, so they could take sort of like the victory there, but other than that, they're not going through to the grand final.
No, but yes, they'll be disappointed they didn't make the grand final in their first season, but as I was just about to say, they shouldn't go with their home with their heads between the tails because they've had a very successful first year.
Oh, yeah.
And
hands down they have.
They'll definitely build on that heading into 2022 B season later this year.
Yeah. Jamie Chapman was my standout for the Dragons, though. 128 running meters, 5 tackle breaks, 2 line breaks, and that 1 try, which looked more like it was out of an NFL playbook than it was a rugby league game.
It certainly did. That was an awesome try right there. But
highlight of the day.
Yeah, right there.
Hey, so, jumping back, Dragons, Roosters at the Moreton Daily Stadium at Redcliffe.
Well, you know who I'm going to tip.
Yeah, I sort of figured with your red and white eyes looking at me, looking for something to say Dragons are still doing okay, even though we got trounced by Parramatta.
Yeah, no. Look, the Dragons they had 1 loss all season. That was against Brisbane, surprisingly. But, I'm going to say the Dragons to win this one. In 7-12.
The margin is going to be interesting with the battle of the packs. Now that Togatuki's available, this could get interesting. But I'm going to say, if this comes down to a tight goal-kicking situation, I'm backing Zahara Tamara in over Rachel Pearson to nail the conversions. Because you don't want this going down to the wire. Because if the Roosters get this going down to the wire, I think this is their time. They were unlucky in 2018, unlucky again in 2020, I should say. So they've been in 2 grand finals prior.
Both to Brisbane.
Yeah, well, all the grand finals were against Brisbane. So
true.
This is the Roosters' 3rd grand final appearance. The Dragons their 2nd.
Yeah.
I got to go with the Roosters. I think there is an air of confidence around this team. And if it goes down to the wire, I'm backing Tamara in over Pearson. And I think Jess Surgis will get a try against the former club. Roosters won the 6.
Yeah, well, Dragons will need to work on the goal kicking, which I think they they did improve slightly. But as I said, Dragons are going to win 7-12.
And on that note, that is full time for your NRL Week 5, I should say. NRL Week 5 debrief here on the Sideline Chat podcast. But don't go anywhere, because tomorrow we're going to be back with your Betfred Super League Week 8 debrief. We'll be looking at the Challenge Cup quarter-final ties, as well as the results from round 7 of the Betfred Super League. We'll catch you tomorrow afternoon.